One man, 300 million yen, and not a single fingerprint. He walked into traffic, stopped 4 bank cars, and disappeared in broad daylight, in front of dozens of witnesses, in one of the most densely populated cities on Earth, and nobody ever caught him. This is the story of the 300 million yen robbery. The number alone is almost incomprehensible. 300 million yen in 1968. That is roughly 800,000 US dollars at the time. Today, it would be worth several million. And it vanished. All of it. Gone, like smoke, into a city of 12 million people. But here is what you need to understand before we go any further. This case did not haunt Japan because the money was never found. It haunted Japan because of what the crime said about the country itself. Because the thief did not use a gun. He used a uniform. He used authority. He used the one thing that post-war Japan had built its recovery on: trust. And there is something else. Something investigators would not fully understand for years. The planning required to pull this off was so precise, so cold, so meticulous, that many experts came to believe it could only have been the work of someone who had been watching the system from the inside. Who could that have been? And why, after one of the largest manhunts in Japanese history, 110 million people investigated, that is virtually every living person in Japan at the time, did they never find him? Keep those questions close, because the deeper we go, the stranger the answers become. December 10th, 1968. Tokyo, it is a cold Tuesday morning. 4 Nihon Shintaku Bank employees are transporting a large payroll delivery. The cash, 300 million yen in total, is split between 4 cars heading to the Toshiba factory in Fuchu City. This is routine. This is a route the bank runs regularly. The employees are relaxed. There is no reason to be otherwise. At around 9:20 in the morning, a young police officer on a motorcycle pulls up alongside the lead car. He is in full uniform, badge, hat. Everything is correct. Everything looks legitimate. He flags the convoy to stop. He tells the bank employees there is an emergency. He says he has received a tip that a bomb has been planted under one of the vehicles, possibly more than one. He says the device could detonate at any moment. He instructs everyone to step out of the cars immediately. The employees comply. Of course they comply. He is a police officer. He crawls under one of the vehicles as if to inspect it. Seconds later, smoke and flame erupt from beneath the car. The employees scatter. They panic. They run. And the young officer gets into one of the vehicles, starts the engine, and drives away. When the smoke clears and the employees gather themselves enough to think, the car, and the 300 million yen, is gone. It took less than 3 minutes. The investigation that followed was unlike anything Japan had ever seen. Tokyo Metropolitan Police flooded the area within the hour. The scale of the response was immediate and overwhelming. At its peak, more than 170,000 investigators were assigned to the case. That number, let that settle for a moment. 170,000. They recovered the motorcycle. They recovered the getaway car, abandoned not far from the scene. They found tools. They found the smoke device, which turned out to be a road flare modified to look threatening. There were no real explosives. The bomb threat was entirely fabricated. And yet, somehow, almost no usable forensic evidence. The motorcycle had been stolen. The car had been wiped. Whoever this man was, he had not acted on impulse. Every element of the crime had been prepared in advance. The uniform, the motorcycle, the fake emergency, the smoke device, the escape route. All of it choreographed. All of it clean. Investigators identified a prime suspect relatively quickly, a 19-year-old named Mitsuru Shiratori, the son of a police officer in Fuchu City. He matched some witness descriptions. He had means and knowledge. He was scrutinized intensely. Then he died by suicide, and the investigation hit a wall. But here is where it gets stranger. Some of the witnesses described a man who appeared older than 19. Others described different physical details that did not match. The composite sketches produced by different witnesses were not entirely consistent with each other. Some investigators began to quietly wonder, had they focused on Shiratori too quickly? Had they been chasing the wrong person all along? If you have a theory forming already, keep it in mind. I'll ask you about it at the end. Because the detail that truly breaks this case open is not who the suspect was. It is how perfectly he knew the system he was robbing. The payroll delivery to the Toshiba factory was not publicly announced. The route was not common knowledge. The timing of the convoy, the number of vehicles, the fact that the cash would be split between 4 cars. This was internal information. Operational information. The kind of thing you would only know if someone had told you, or if you had spent significant time watching and learning from the inside. And there is more. The flare device used to simulate a bomb? It was built with technical knowledge, not genius level, but deliberate, studied. And the manner in which the suspect engaged with the bank employees, calm, authoritative, practiced, suggested someone who understood how people in a hierarchical society respond to a figure of institutional power. In Japan in 1968, you did not question a police officer. You did not ask for identification. You obeyed. Whoever did this knew that. Knew it deeply enough to bet 300 million yen on it. And it worked. Now think about the men in those cars. They were ordinary bank employees doing an ordinary job on an ordinary Tuesday morning. They followed the rules. They trusted the uniform. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. And because of that, they were questioned, re-questioned, scrutinized. Some endured the implication, never officially stated, always hanging in the air, that they could have done more. Stopped him. Fought back. A few carried that with them for the rest of their lives. The bank was humiliated. The police were humiliated. Japan was shaken, not just by the audacity of the crime, but by what it exposed. A society that had placed enormous faith in its institutions had been robbed of hundreds of millions of yen using nothing but a costume and a can of smoke. No gun, no violence, just trust, weaponized. The statute of limitations expired in 1975, 7 years. And in Japan, once that clock runs out, it is over. The case was formally closed. Whoever did this could, from that moment forward, confess without legal consequence. No one ever did. But the most disturbing part has always been the theories, because none of them close the loop. The first theory is the one investigators leaned toward hardest. The inside job. A former or current police officer, or someone with direct access to police operations and police equipment, who knew the Fuchu area intimately, who knew the bank's delivery schedule, and who had the psychological confidence to impersonate authority because they had lived inside that authority. The motorcycle and uniform suggest someone who either stole them with precision or had access to them naturally. This theory has the most evidential weight. It also has no name attached to it. The second theory is that this was organized crime, that the Yakuza, or a criminal network with significant resources, planned and funded the operation, using a skilled operative as the visible face. The level of preparation, the intelligence on the bank's movements, the clean execution. Some analysts argue this goes beyond one man acting alone. A lone genius is romantic, but a coordinated criminal organization with inside information? That is a machine. And machines do not leave fingerprints by accident. The third theory is the one that refuses to go away no matter how much investigators tried to dismiss it. That the thief was someone ordinary, someone who had simply watched, followed the convoy on prior dates, studied the patterns, built his tools carefully, practiced his performance. A man with patience, intelligence, and something to prove, or something desperate to solve, who understood that Japan's greatest vulnerability was not its security systems. It was its culture of deference. That theory is terrifying not because it requires a mastermind, but because it requires almost nothing except nerve and time. 300 million yen was never recovered. No arrest was ever made. And somewhere out there, if the laws of probability hold, someone lived the rest of their life knowing exactly how they did it. Perhaps comfortably, perhaps in silence, perhaps watching the news coverage with something unreadable behind their eyes. The case is closed. The law has nothing left to offer. But the question never goes away. So what do you think really happened? Who was this man? Was it an inside job, organized crime, or a lone genius who simply understood Japan better than Japan understood itself? Tell me your theory in the comments. I read everyone. Next week, we're crossing to a different country entirely for a disappearance that shook an entire continent and still has no answer. Subscribe.